Hello. What I'd like to do tonight is introduce you to the Booby Fly, and want to tell you a little bit about it first. It's Booby, Booby Fly. It was introduced in 1987 by a fellow by the name of Gordon Fraser. It's very popular in the UK, and he introduced it in his book Mastering the Nymph. The Booby Fly pattern was one of his patterns, and it's characterized by the large eyes in the front of the fly. It's considered an approach to stillwater fishing, and it catches trout, perch, panfish, bass, and carp. And I can attest to it catching bass because I have a pond and I've already tried it. I want to show you another lure. Now, if you're an avid fly fisherman, you probably want to turn your eyes at this time, but this is a crankbait. And if you notice, and this is a good top water lure for bass. It's a head and torpedo lure, and it's got some characteristics on it, namely the yellow color, the green top, a propeller, which provides flash and sound. And if you look at the Booby Fly, put it back in the vise again, it's got the same kind of characteristics. It's got the color, it's got the flash in the back, gold flash, it's got some legs on it, and it's got the colors that make it look like even this kind of topwater lure. I got real excited about topwater a couple years ago. It's real exciting, as we all know, to have a fish rise and take either a fly or a lure. So, without any delay, we'll start to introduce you to this fly. And I'm going to talk about a materials list. And if you don't mind, I'll just put this hook into the vise. And there we go. Let's talk about the hook first. It is a size 12. It's a mustad hook. We're going to be using some yellow foam cylinders, and they look like so. They're 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and we're going to get a fresh set of cylinders here to tie these flies, but you can buy them in bulk in a bag. 1/4 of an inch. Yellow is what I'm going to be using. Across the top, we're going to tie just a little bit of green for accent. We're going to be using a white marabou feather for the tail. And for thread, we're going to be using a yellow 3/0 thread, and I've got to, at this point, thread the bobbin. But I tell you what we'll do, just for the sake of time, we'll use green because my bobbin is already threaded with green. So, we'll start off. Now I'm going to need a trifle bit more light, and we'll get to tying the fly. And we'll start by wrapping the hook. It was a nice thread bed. Now, you're wondering why I embedded the hook tip into the vise. That's to make sure I don't snag it, and with these small hooks, I'm finding it easy to do. My eyesight wasn't as good as when I was 20 years old. And I put a dab of head cement on just for a little added security. And I'll take and I'll grab my scissors and I'll cut this tail off. Now, we'll start off. Next thing we want to do is, you can see I got my thread up to the eye end of the hook. We'll take a cylinder out Here's a cylinder. And we'll take and we'll cut off about 3/8 of an inch of cylinder. So now you got a piece about that long. And now what we'll do is we'll just take and we'll put a little nick into the cylinder. And oops. We'll see if we can see this. You know it's live now because I've already made a few mistakes, but we've got a little nick in the cylinder right now, cut with the scissor. And what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of head cement where I'm going to place the head of the booby fly, or the eyes of the booby fly. And we'll take and we'll put that right on the end, and we'll take and we'll hold it in place a little bit, get it on there, get the glue set up, beginning to be set up. And now we'll take and we'll fasten the eyes to the hook with a couple loose wraps in a figure X pattern. And these little flies sometimes are difficult to tie with, as we all know. Get snarled up in our own thread here. And we'll put a couple wraps onto it one way, and we'll put a couple wraps onto it the other way, again making a figure X pattern. And then we'll wrap it around the eye of the hook. We'll go backwards. And we'll start to cinch it down a little bit now. And you'll end up with a band of, in this case, green across the head of the, or where the eyes are going to be. Okay? So now we can take and we can leave our thread just behind the eye. You can see that. Just behind the eye is where the thread is, right there. And now what we'll do is we'll get our marabou feather. And here's the marabou feather. And we'll take and we'll cut, not rip. And I got this from watching Joe or Jerry Caviello tie some flies. So you want a pinch of marabou. And so here's the pinch. And we're going to tie that on to the back of the fly. A couple loose wraps. And then take and cinch it down. There we go, we got that on the back now. And I always like to use a little bit of head cement for added security. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll take and we'll tie some flash onto the back. And if you don't know where your flash is, it's probably laying on the floor. It always seems to end up on the floor. And then it ends up in the vacuum cleaner. But here's some gold flash in this case here. And we're going to tie, it's one strand, but what we're going to do is we're going to take and fold it over. And we're going to take and cut this loop so that the loop is free. So we've got 4 strands. And we'll take and we'll tie this onto the back of the fly. Like so. Now we've got the flash out the back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of green foam. And we're going to cut a piece about 3/8 of an inch. Like so. And then on the end of it, we're just going to take and break the corners a bit. And so that you have something that looks like a trapezoid. This is a mathematical term. Doesn't have to be too pretty. And then we're going to take and we're going to put that over the back of the fly. Keep our tail and our flash out of the way, and then we're going to take a loose wrap and a couple tight wraps, and we're going to fasten that to the top of the fly. Okay. And then I'll just take a little bit of head cement once again. And put that off, put that on there. And I see we got a loose feather, so just cut him off of there. Now, what I always like to do, again, it's a variation on maybe a traditional booby fly is what I'm tying, but I kind of like to put legs onto the flies, so I'm going to take and put a set of legs on, and I'm going to put a loose wrap there, and I've got the one pair of legs on. I'm going to take and cut him off right about there. Straighten him out a little bit. And then I'm going to tie onto the other side another set of legs. A loose wrap. Tighten it. And then a couple more wraps. And then I'm going to take and cut the legs off again. He's evened up pretty good. There. Got him all tightened off. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to finish off the fly with just a simple overhand through the middle. Overhand knot through the middle, no particular whip finish or anything like that. And we'll take and we'll put him through there. Make sure that we don't cinch our legs down too bad. And then we'll put another one. And the thread's not particularly cooperating. And away you go there. Okay. And then we can end him off with a little bit of head cement. And cut him free. Now, at this point, you can cut the fly free from the vise, and here's your booby fly. Now, on the sides, you can take and you can add eyes with a simple magic marker, a permanent magic marker, and I've done that on this particular fly. You can see just a simple orange eye there. And what I also like to do is I like to go on the underside of the fly, and I just like to put a little zap-a-gap on the underside right in there, just to make sure that everything stays into position. But I like to fly a lot. I like flying. I like fishing top water. The fly has got quite a lot of variability. So here's another booby fly here, tied with again, a yellow head, but with a black back and different kinds of legs. And then you could tie all green if that's what you want. Again, you know, we know that this particular crankbait lure with its colors seems to work well on bass. And if you just kind of put the two flies side by side here, you can almost see a similarity between this crankbait and this particular fly. So enjoy. It's a very good pattern. It can be fished topwater because of the foam. It'll float. And it'll also fish suspended if you take and use a dropping line, not a floating line, but a sinking line. And it'll take and suspend about, inches off the water column then. So it'll rise up. So it's a good little fly to fish. It's very, very effective. I've taken and caught bass on it, sunfish. Nice little fly, and again, you can't beat the action of a topwater lure. Thank you very much.